Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are, thank you for tuning in and welcome back to the tennis vlog. Don't believe I asked you to subscribe at the beginning of the last video, so hit subscribe now if you haven't already done so. And we're ready to get talking about the second round of the US Open, which almost didn't look like it would wrap up on time at one point, but they managed to fit a load of matches into one day after rain hit on the first day of second round action. And we're all ready for round three. At some point during this video, the video may drop because the Wi-Fi here is terrible. So if it starts to buffer, just drop a comment and let me know. And if the Wi-Fi is working, I'll see it. And if it's not, I won't. So that's where we're at. Let's have a look then at some of the key results from the second round. Hello, welcome. Thank you for watching live. Yeah, so in the first round, there were actually a couple of key upsets that I neglected to mention, but no one else mentioned them either, so they can't have been overly significant. Sloane Stephens, 2017 champion, she went out to Anna Kalinskaya, who I watched get roundly thrashed at an ITF event in April by someone ranked outside the top 300, but she's in pretty good form at the moment, so credit to her, mixing it up and getting confidence on the WTA level. There was Karen Khachanov. I think I mentioned Khachanov actually. He went out and he was a bit of a dark horse for me. Roberto Bautista Agut, someone mentioned, went down and he was one of the most consistent at the beginning of the year. So even though none of the big names, the really, really big names went out, there were a few that were a little bit more unexpected, but still not overly shocking. However, more seeds went out than I at first thought. Now we've got our first kind of big name of the moment fallen by the wayside because Simona Halep is out and she won Wimbledon. So yeah, Halep went out to Taylor Townsend. That one was always going to be tricky. I feel like she's definitely struggled with Townsend before. It was during a clay court season, either this year or last year, but time flies so fast I can't really remember. And Townsend, if you weren't aware of her back in the day, she was the top-ranked teenager. There was a lot of controversy due to her being barred from events because of issues to do with her weight, etc., which was just not valid. And she's been through a rough time. She's had injuries as well. She's now 23, so she's older than me, and it feels like she's been a young rising player for ages, but Townsend really showed what she was about during that match against Halep. Fully deserved to win. Serve and volley after serve and volley after serve and volley. I mean, we're seeing players come to the net more now, but not necessarily right behind the serve. She was controlled, she was emphatic, and Halep getting really, really frustrated, even when things were, yeah, even when she wasn't really down at the beginning of the decider. She was obviously frustrated and struggling to kind of control her emotions because she just couldn't see a way of getting through the brick wall that was Taylor Townsend, and their hands were so good as well, dropping the drop volleys and finding the angle on her shots from the net. It was really, really impressive from Townsend, and obviously the question with any result like this is, can she maintain the level? But of all the results in the second round, I think that one was probably the most impressive, not because of the name that was knocked out, because as I've said, wasn't able to see Halep winning the US Open just because she won Wimbledon, and that's got to take a lot of energy. You know, Halep wasn't really on most people's radar, went and won Wimbledon in emphatic fashion, and suddenly she's up there again. That's a whole lot of mental pressure. She's put a lot of matches in recently. The US Open, as we've said, is the slam where physical difficulties can start to get the better of players. But yeah, it was good for Townsend because of the way in which she executed the victory. And, you know, even in those moments late in the final set where she wobbled slightly, she just stuck to her game plan and kept going and maintained the confidence necessary to come through the match. So I was really impressed with that one. And now I'm going to take a look at the questions that are coming through. So send them in, and the quicker you send them in, the quicker I can get to answering them, and the quicker we can all get to watching the tennis. Halep doesn't like the US Open. That's a bit of a random comment. Halep's made the semis at the US Open before. She played one of the best WTA tennis matches I've seen, I think, to my memory, against, I think, Victoria Azarenka in the quarters, maybe a couple of years ago. And then, yeah, I think so. That was probably the same year she then went out to Flavia Pennetta, who won the tournament. Yeah, I think I've got that right. I don't really trust my memory at the moment. But yeah, I wouldn't say that she dislikes the US Open. Someone else that seems to have a weird relationship with the US Open at the moment is Roger Federer, because he's looked pretty shaky at times, I think, in his opening 2 rounds. And I don't know if this was expected, really. He didn't have the best run in the one tournament he played between Wimbledon and this event. But, you know, it's difficult. It's difficult to read Federer at the moment. He has had troubled starts to the US Open last year, the year before, and on both of those occasions, I think 2 years ago, did he make the final? I don't think he did. But yeah, you can never really tell if he's going to play his way into form or if he's going to not pull it together in time to make a real impact. So it's going to be interesting, I think, Federer's match against Dan Evans, because the Federer-Dan Evans match in Australian Open, even though it was straight sets to Federer, was one of the highest quality matches throughout from 2 players up against each other that I've seen this year. I think it was a really, really good match, and 2 players that play with very similar, very watchable style. The serves, the one-handed backhand and the passes, the backhand slices, the volleys, you know, that has all the potential to be really entertaining, and it's one of the first matches on today. So I think that's going to be key when we take a look at how Federer is, where he's at, and how far he can go in this tournament. So looking forward to seeing that one. What have we got coming through? Tsitsipas makes many unforced errors. Tsitsipas went out round 1. Tsitsipas at the moment, I'm sorry, is old news. We can move on from Tsitsipas. I think we spoke about him quite a bit in the first video. What do you think about Kvitova's loss? Interesting, because Kvitova I didn't call as an outright contender for the title at this event. I've had her down as a contender for the previous 3 slams of the year, but she was playing so well and then didn't follow through that I just didn't really see her up there for the US. But at the same time, wasn't sure that she'd go out to Andrea Petkovic. But, you know, I watched some of that match, and at the end of the day, it made sense. Petkovic is a former Grand Slam semi-finalist, former top 10 player, and she's here and there now, but Kvitova is one of those players that Petkovic has known for a long time and played against for a long time, so she knows her game, she knows Kvitova's tendencies, and if Kvitova's not having her best day, you know, Petkovic is the kind of player that can take advantage, that knows what to do and where to put the ball, and I think she handled herself very well, very maturely. I think just because Petkovic is inconsistent these days, she can kind of be written off as competition, and her presence in the draw can be played down. But that was a bit of a nasty second round for Kvitova, I would say. And yeah, I think that Kvitova's loss might be surprising that it came so early, but the fact she lost in general at this tournament is not surprising to me. I mean, she's never won before, so it's crazy really to think that she's not won a slam outside of Wimbledon, because she's so devastatingly talented. Okay. I don't even know. I don't get this thing that people think I'm a massive Djokovic supporter. First and foremost, I'm part of the media. I don't support, I watch, you know, I analyze. That's my job here. But no, you'd be surprised. You'd be very surprised. I believe there will be a new Grand Slam winner from the men's side, someone like Nick Kyrgios. Kyrgios' match I watched the majority of last night. He was getting bored, I think, towards the end. He was kind of looking for things to go off at, someone made a comment actually that he was looking for things to go off at to keep himself engaged in the match, and I can see that actually he does kind of tend to lose interest quite quickly. But all in all, as far as his tennis goes, scary stuff. You know, he was just thumping those serves in at crazy miles per hour. He was unleashing off his ground strokes, and I don't think Kyrgios is given enough credit for his touch and skill in that respect as well, because he can send such a slick, fast ball. All the attention's on his power. but he's so versatile and he really does have natural raw talent. So when I say his portion of the draw is open, it is seriously, seriously open. Like, he is, I think, the second highest seed left in his quarter, and the only seed higher than him is no. Okay, so to get to the quarterfinals in his little section of people trying to get to the quarters, he's the second highest seed left, and the highest seed left is Marco Berrettini. So no one that Kyrgios is going to be really intimidated by. So it's his section to win or lose, really. And even when he gets to the quarters, I think Gael Monfils is the top seed he could face. Denis Shapovalov's lurking there, but really all eyes are on Kyrgios at this point. So if he does have the concentration span, if he can hold himself together for that number of matches, which is questionable, totally he's able to do it and has the ability and has the talent. But, you know, it's his quarter at the moment to win or lose, I would say, despite people being seated higher than him still being there. And yeah, I mean, for his sake, I hope he can just concentrate, because his game is tremendous and it's a tremendous opportunity right now. And then he's in Nadal's half of the draw, so it would probably be Nadal in the semis, and that matchup gets him fired up, so that one would be really interesting. One of these players will reach the quarterfinals: Christy Ahn, Jelena Ostapenko, Elise Mertens, Andrea Petkovic. Who do you think is most likely? I've had my eye on Jelena Ostapenko, and usually I mention Ostapenko's name at the outset of a tournament as someone to watch, but she's been so cold recently that I just didn't dare ahead of the US Open. But she just got a good win, straight sets over Alison Risk, and Risk has been in really great form over recent weeks. Anyone who watched the grass court season will know that Risk, with her volleys, with her reactive skills, was one of the toughest players out there, and I think that she got more grass court wins than anyone else during the grass court season, so that was huge. And for Ostapenko to come through that one in straights, hitting as many unforced errors as she did, because Ostapenko always hits many unforced errors, but I think her unforced error count was nearly double the amount of her winner count. That, I mean, that's pretty big, I think, for Ostapenko. Risk isn't seeded, but she is American. She'd come through her first round. It wasn't like she was caught cold at the beginning of the event. So yeah, I'm not going to pick outright because it could get difficult, but I have had my eye on Ostapenko. But then again, you know, I think Christy Ahn got quite a good first round win, although I can't remember who it was against. Elise Mertens won Doha at the beginning of the year, I think. Yeah, the Qatar Open she won. And in impressive fashion. We haven't really seen that level from Mertens since, but it was good. Petkovic is one of those players, you know, she is inconsistent, and while I think she did well to beat Kvitova, I don't really see her sustaining at this point. So I think out of them, Ostapenko would be my pick, but that's always a very dangerous thing to say. What about you guys? What are you thinking regarding that section? With Djokovic injured and Federer out of form, a very easy path. Nadal has a free pass to this title. Now, you can't ever say this, because I wouldn't say Federer's out of form. I think he's shaky in a few aspects. His forehand off the ground looks inconsistent, but what he did very well against Damir Juma when he was a set down again was use a serve. Federer has one of the best serves, and the versatility, the way he can land it when he needs to. Even if he just has his serve, at times that's enough to carry him through. So I wouldn't write Federer off, even though I don't think he's the strongest of the three to contend for the title. Djokovic, we don't know how bad the injury is. I mean, he got treatment for his shoulder during that match and still won in straights. So to write him off would be a big deal, and probably do so at your peril, as with all the big three. And then Nadal, you know, has had good runs to semi-finals, finals at Grand Slams this year, and then being taken aback by who he faces in his final match. And his opponent, namely Federer at Wimbledon and Djokovic at the Australian Open, haven't let him play his game, and he's struggled with that. So I think you can't call it from this point. It really is very up in the air, and I'm going to be interested to see how it plays out. Yeah. Does Djokovic have a chance now that he's injured? Similar question. Yeah, I think so. Because it's at this stage it is difficult to say how much it's affecting him. I do think it affected his serve a bit against Londero. He was serving at a lower percentage. I think fractionally slower as well. I think I have that right. But was down a double break in the second set and still went in straight sets. So these guys, these top guys, have a grit that takes them beyond what their body might necessarily be able to accomplish. And obviously, 7 matches is a lot more than 2. But I think that, yeah, he definitely has a chance. He definitely has several chances. I'd still take him over most of the players left in the draw. So, yeah, I think he's still right up there unless he pulls out or things in the next match or the match after, if he's still here, say otherwise. There are huge chances that Diana Yastrzemska will upset today. What do you think? Well, I think it was a great win for Yastrzemska. I can't talk at the moment. I'm sorry. Okay, I think it was a huge win for Yastrzemska to come past Rebecca Pettersson, because Pettersson's one of those players that is honestly, there's a ceiling to what she can do, but she can take players by surprise. She troubled Serena earlier this year. She's had some big name wins, and it's technically a match that Yastrzemska should have been winning, and I believe she won it in straight sets, if I am correct. I need to start checking these things before I come, because Diana Yastrzemska seems to be a popular talking point at the moment. And she did 6-4, 6-1. Yastrzemska, 32nd seed. That's huge for her. Now she plays Svitolina. And do you know what? When players from the same country face off against each other, we saw it yesterday when Fiona Ferro, I believe, beat Kristina Mladenovic after Mladenovic had taken out Kerber. Rankings and status, etc., can go out of the window, because when players are from the same part of the world, they've often grown up knowing of each other and at least seeing each other play, even if they haven't played against each other. And I know there's a bit of an age gap between Svitolina and Yastrzemska, but I would think they know each other's games quite well. And Svitolina, while she's a top seed, for Yastrzemska, that's not the worst seed she could have drawn. Svitolina, as well as she played at Wimbledon, still hasn't got that slam title, that elusive slam title. And I think Yastrzemska will probably fancy her chances because she is confident. That's one of her big assets. A thing I would say, though, is that Svitolina's been well prepped for this match. She came through Venus Williams to make this round, beat Venus in straights, but Venus gave her the runaround and fired some flat power at her, got the angles, stretched her out. The difficulty for Venus in that match was that she was playing her best tennis when she was down on the scoreboard. And if you're only peaking when you're down, that's not going to get you ahead to get you across the finish line. So timing was the issue for Venus there, but Svitolina came through a very tricky matchup. Impressive that she did it in straights. And therefore, Yastrzemska will have her chances there, but Svitolina might just have been hardened up for that clash. So, interesting question. Honestly, Yastrzemska will have chances, but I wouldn't be outright calling her for the upset at this point in time. And now I've got to find where I am on the questions again. Did you see Medvedev's match? He was cruising but started cramping and could have lost it. Yeah, I was trying to watch as much as possible, actually, yesterday, so I saw part of Medvedev's match, but it wasn't when he was cramping. So, yeah. I did see him getting treatment. And that's always positive when you have a blip in your match and there's a physical issue and you can put that behind you and still come through, even if you could have won more easily. I think that is positive for him, but at the same time, Medvedev's played a lot of tennis in recent weeks. That's not something he's necessarily used to, and it's not something that's helpful when you're playing best of 5 at a slam. Cramps can indicate tiredness, so that's probably a bit concerning for Medvedev. He was up against Hugo Dellien. I've watched Dellien more this year than I ever have. He's impressive. He's got fluid ground strokes. He plays well at the net. He's got a good serve. And, for Medvedev to have been on the verge of winning that in straights is good for him. Obviously, cramps a bit out of his control, so that's concerning. But you know, I think good for him that he's made it into the third round, because there was a lot of increased attention and spotlight on him ahead of the event, and he's never had a Grand Slam breakthrough. So good for Medvedev, and we'll see how he goes as far as the physicality is. If Nadal doesn't encounter many high-caliber players in his road to the final, would it hurt him or benefit him? And what do you think will be the last nail in the coffin or retirement for Federer? Oh, okay, so that's a bit more in the distance, and I've talked about this a bit, so I might leave the Federer question for now. Maybe we can talk about it later in the event, or maybe we can talk about it further in the future, because I think he's far from done. But as far as Nadal goes, I think I did mention this before, and you know, it's 50-50. I think that there can be pros and cons. If Nadal faces anyone other than Djokovic or Federer in the final, should he get to the final, then I think that it's no problem at all that he hasn't faced any higher caliber player. But as I say, he did face Djokovic at the Australian Open, Federer at Wimbledon, and didn't look fully prepared for them, just because their level was so good, and he wasn't allowed to play the way he wanted to. So maybe that will have helped him a bit to see areas where he can improve, because I don't think Nadal, I mean, he wasn't allowed to play his best in either of those matches, but I don't think he did produce a level he was happy with 100% either. So maybe he'll have learned from that. He could play Kyrgios in the semis. Obviously, it was the Kyrgios match that really got him going at Wimbledon. His level, his energy, his tenacity in that match was like nothing I've ever seen from Nadal. And he's a gritty, determined, focused player, but the emotions from him during the Kyrgios match I'd just not seen before. So yeah, maybe Kyrgios, if they face off in the semis, will be the big test, and if he comes through that, he'll be primed and ready for the final. But it is 50-50, you know, it is a situation where at this point in time we don't really know what's going to happen, and it could go either way. Where are we at now? Do you think that whoever wins the US Open on the women's side will be the year-ending number one? The race to year-end championships is pretty even up at the top. It's difficult to say because there's so little space between all the women at the top at the moment. Like, it's enough said that I think 4 different women could end this tournament as number one, or at least a couple of days ago that was the case. So I think things are so close that it's hard to say. Osaka's defending a few points back end of the year. I think one of the others is as well, but I'm not sure who. So I don't think it will come down to just the US Open. Obviously, US Open will have a huge say in it, but you know, we've still got Wuhan coming up after this. We've got is it still called the Pan Pacific Open? I can't remember even where it is, but during the Asian swing anyway, there's 2 or 3 big tournaments, the China Open as well. Then you have the year-ending championships, obviously. So it's not like the season ends with the US Open. It might for some tennis fans who want a bit of a breather, but there's plenty of points to pick up after. And if players see that they're close to the year-end number one, that's something that's going down in the history books and the record books. That's something that they want to be a part of, and therefore, you know, that might, yeah, it might play on their minds, and therefore they might add in extra tournaments or play more or play harder than they were going to. So yeah, I don't think the US Open will be the deciding factor there. Yeah, good question. Goffin Muguruza is in bad form. What can she do to get back in form? Yeah, if you watch my last video, you'll know I said that Muguruza was kind of at the back of my mind for me for doing well here. Glad that I didn't put it on a video because she lost first round. But yeah, you know, Muguruza has all the tools. She, from the age of 18, you know, before she got injured, she was one of the ones to watch. She's got the intensity, she's got the serve, she's got the game face. I think that now she's parted ways with Summick, Sam Summick, who was a coach, who was there with her for a long time. Sometimes having that freshness is enough to make a mental change in it. As with many players when they're struggling with Muguruza's ability, it's more mental than physical for her. So that shows that she wants to change things up. She split with Summick just before this tournament, so probably a bit too early for it to have an impact, but you know, there's a few tournaments left in the year. She's done well during the Asian swing before, so I think she's got to give it a bit of time after ending that partnership to see where her form goes, to see how she's playing differently, maybe to play a bit more instinctive and just swing a bit. And yeah, I think we can really assess in a few weeks' time with Muguruza where she's at, and if anything physically that she can be doing different, we can assess that then. Predictions for Naomi Osaka versus Coco Gauff. Now, you know how I feel on the Gauff hype, but this is a match I don't mind talking about because it has potential, this one. It really does have potential. To my disappointment with myself, I stayed up late until the early hours of this morning watching the Gauff versus Babos match. I shouldn't have done that because before the moment I saw it on paper, I said Gauff in 3. The moment it went to a third set and she was serving first, I thought, okay, she'll break for it and she'll win it 6-4 in the third, which happened. But I thought I'd better watch it just in case something happens and I need to know how things change. And, you know, it just happened the way I thought it was going to. The thing is, you know, Babos, she's a good doubles player, so she can throw in the variety. I was shocked to see her name in the second round just because her singles career has been nowhere, really, in terms of what she's capable of over the past couple of seasons. So I was surprised to see her name there first and foremost. Gauff had scraped through the first round in 3 sets. So honestly, I thought the Gauff-Babos match was so much better quality than the Gauff-Herzog match in Wimbledon. That literally came down to who made the least errors. Everyone was tight. I mean, it was dramatic, but it was tight. But this one, you know, Gauff played some quality tennis. Babos' ability to mix things up made for some really interesting rallies, and I'm not surprised the crowd were really into it. I mean, it's Gauff at the end of the day. If she was playing against a wall, they'd be into it, but it was an entertaining match. And what really stood out about Gauff there for me is she's so instinctive sometimes when she plays. It's she's so light-footed and she's so fast around the court, and then she's got the touch, she's got that tennis IQ, the ability to read the match in a millisecond, and work out what she needs to do, where she needs to put the ball. The raw talent is 100% there. But then you do have to look at the facts that Gauff has come through her opening matches against players who, with her standard of tennis at the moment, she should honestly be beating. I expected her to make round 3, but she's done it in 3 sets both times. There have been times where she's been down, she's been slow, she's been struggling. And then you've got Osaka, but here's the thing. If Naomi Osaka was in the form of this time last year, I don't think she'd have a single issue with Gauff. I think that she would probably crush her more straightforwardly than Simona Halep did at Wimbledon, because at this point in time, Osaka is the more superior player. That's why she's number 1. That's why she's a multi-time Grand Slam champion. And she has the serve and the forehand to knock Gauff off the court before she's even got into the rallies. She can take her breath away, she can take time away. But the thing is, Osaka is not the same player that she was when she won the event last year. Her first round match showed that she is nervous. And with that being the case, she's going to come out probably onto Arthur Ashe Stadium for a night match against a player that everyone wants to win. Osaka at the moment is used to being crowd favourite. I don't know how she'll respond to that situation, because even though Gauff's going to make her look like the veteran on court, Osaka's a young player herself. She's shown little moments of fragility, and at the moment she is more fragile than she was 6 months ago and than she was 12 months ago. She's having a bit of a time with her confidence, and I think confidence will play a huge part in this match. It's not like it's a first time for Gauff. She beat Venus at Wimbledon. She was up against Halep on centre court at Wimbledon. She's now played on several show courts at a young age, you know, at Grand Slams. So I think that there's quite a bit in Gauff's favour. So to wrap up on that, I do think that if Osaka brings her A game and is focused and is not shaky, then she should clean that one up in straight sets. But if she's not, then it gets interesting, and we could see something huge. But Osaka, in my opinion, is the more capable, more developed, more accomplished player at this point in time. Whether that's the case in 5 years' time, we shall see. But at the moment, she's the better player, and if she brings 100%, she should win that no problem. If she doesn't, then it could turn out to be one of the matches of the tournament. It could. But I'd be interested to hear everyone else's thoughts on that one, because that one should be good. Bertens and Kyrgios are number 2 and number 8 on the WTA leaderboard for aces, so we could see a lot of them. Any thoughts on that match? Yeah, Kiki Bertens had an early exit at Wimbledon. And I mean, I don't think her hopes would have been seriously high for that tournament because she's known as a clay court player, but she is transferring her form well to hard courts. And Kyrgios is a good server. She plays well on the faster surface. So the thoughts on that match for me is that it could really be 50-50. I think they've both lived up to their seeding to where they should be in this draw. So that shows that they're both feeling quite confident. So yeah, I think that will be a 50-50 match. I think there will be big serves and probably some short rallies, but once the rallies get going, it's difficult to say who will be the most consistent because I think you can draw quite a few similarities between those two particular players. Zverev going to 5 sets again. Yeah, death, taxes, Zverev going 5, the 3 certainties in life. I don't know why I watched that match. It's the same with the Gauff match, with the Zverev match. The moment he won the first set and the commentators are going, great form from Alexander Zverev. If he can keep this up, and we're all like, no. If he can keep this up, that's a very big if. Because Zverev has the talent, but he just hasn't had the confidence this year, and it's something that he's been quite open about. And as I said probably for about 10 minutes straight in the last video, the more he goes to 5, the more he goes out there with the expectation he will go 5. Now, this is not all down to Zverev. He was playing Francis Tiafoe, who was going to be a tricky customer. Tiafoe has good hands, you know, and good reach and can rally for days. So he was always going to bring it to Zverev. They're similar age. They've known each other for some time. And that was going to be a close match, but it was going to be even closer because Zverev was part of it, let's be real. So, yeah, I think Zverev won sets 1, 3, and 5. And again, you know, positive that he got through, but not so positive that he went 5 because he's not conserving energy. And that matters when he gets deeper into the draw. So, yeah, Zverev threw in 5 again. And they are words I would not be surprised to be saying after the next round too. How are you feeling about Pablo Carreño Busta today? How am I feeling about him and who is he playing? Let's have a look at the schedule. Carreño Busta is one of those ones who, I mean, I believe he made a semi here before or somewhere else, right? He's made a slam semi, and I think it might have been here a couple of years back. Now he's playing David Goffa. Goffa has been playing some of his best tennis in some time recently. He's been hit by injury. I think that, you know, if Goffa brings his best and unleashes with that forehand that can be so devastating, he should have the upper hand there. But Carreño Busta, you know, don't be put off by the fact he's Spanish. He can play on a hard court. And yeah, I think that one can stretch beyond straight sets. I mean, there have to be upsets somewhere. I'd probably take Goff out there, but honestly, haven't seen much of either player at the moment, so I'm not in a position where I can really make a legitimate prediction. When has Osaka ever been crowd favorite in New York? She was, I think they were willing her through in the first round, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but she's crowd favorite elsewhere. I mean, ever since that win over Serena in the US Open final, she's been a massive, huge favorite. So I didn't say necessarily in New York, but she is used to having some backing. Where are we at? Is it talent or fitness that the next gen is lacking? They're not lacking talent. I've said it a million times. They're not lacking talent. The future is bright. There is so much potential. And it's not fitness either. It's just endurance and being fully developed. You know, some of these guys are still in their teens. They need a bit more time for the best of 5 sets. This person says, here and now someone new pops up, wins a few tournaments, even consistent for a year or so, and then quickly gets sidelined after being burnt out. Yeah, I mean, people like Tsitsipas. People like Stefanos Tsitsipas, okay? He's a bit burnt out probably at the end of the year because he's played so much tennis. But it's something he'll get used to. I mean, how old is Tsitsipas? Is he still 20? And yet he's right up there in the top 10 in a highly physical game. I mean, the way he plays and how talented he is, you can overlook how difficult it is at his age to be right up there. So I think that they're not lacking in talent, and I wouldn't use the phrase they're lacking in fitness. I would say they just need a little bit more time when it comes to the slams to develop and to gain the necessary endurance against players like Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, who are so physically and mentally strong. That's as simple as it gets. Do you think Nishikori will win in straight sets? I think Nishikori has good opportunities. Do we often see Nishikori win in straights? Not really. He plays Alex de Minaur, and with it being de Minaur, he shouldn't win that in straights. De Minaur has been in great form recently. I watched some of his last match. He's fast as lightning. He's really got the speeds, and he's got the sense for where to place his balls in the court as well. So that one should be a really good match. Two all-court players there, and really quick players. So if that one doesn't extend straight sets, I don't use the word surprise, but I'd think that one would go to 4 at least. And, you know, it's who's to say who will come through that one, because, like I say, de Minaur's in good form. Nishikori is here and there, but if you watched my US Open preview video, a preview of the tournament, you will know that I said that I thought Nishikori is an outside contender outside of the big 3. So that could be interesting. What do you think about Andrei Rublev versus Nick Kyrgios next round? I guarantee there will be drama of some sort. Might be a bit of controversy, because Rublev's in great form. He's another young player, and unless Kyrgios brings 100%, it's unlikely that he'll be off court in straights, and that means there's more time for things to go awry. So what do I think of that match? I think it's got loads of potential. I think Rublev's confident. I think Kyrgios has chances. I think he might get a bit shaky if he's pushed, and I mean, because he knows 100%, he knows the opportunity he has in his side of the draw. And honestly, it's on Kyrgios' racket. You know, Rublev's great, but he's not quite as talented, quite as strong as Kyrgios, so it's on Kyrgios' racket. If he gets pushed, he might get frustrated and things might start to happen, potentially, hopefully not. But yeah, I think that one's a popcorn match, so watch it, because I say watch it, and I don't know if I will. I don't know what else will be going on at the same time, but yeah, that one has a lot of potential. And having said that, I think I'm going to wrap up, because it's almost time for the US Open to start for the day. So thank you to everyone that came and watched live. If you've not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, because then you'll know when I'm uploading. Very, very important thing before I go. I've realized that I can't do a third round Q&A because it would be on a Sunday, and I don't work or film on Sundays due to my beliefs as a Christian. I don't work on Sundays. So busy at the weekend anyway, so cannot do a third round Q&A, but I will be doing one after the 4th round. I'm not sure if I might just make that a live preview and predictions video, but if it's a Q&A video, I'll make it a Q&A for 3rd round and 4th round. So if you have any burning questions that you really want to get off your chest regarding the 3rd round, feel free to ask them in the next video. And yeah, so just so that you know, no Q&A video for the 3rd round on Sunday, and the next video will be coming at the beginning of next week, probably on Tuesday. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for tuning in today, and I will see you next time. Enjoy the US Open.